Welcome to the Nurse Mark Podcast, where we talk about everything health, happiness, cannabis. We'll delve into all aspects of what it means to live a powerful, healthy life. Everything from exercise to nutrition to mindfulness, and how to use cannabis as a means to alleviate some of the most common health issues we face. My motivation and passion come from the fact that I personally had to explore all these areas to deal with lifelong depression and mood disorder. For me, it's personal. So sit back, relax, and enjoy. Hey, folks, welcome back to the Nurse Mark Podcast. This week, I have the opportunity to speak with Carey Clark. Carey's a PhD registered nurse and a fellow of the American Academy of Nursing. She's the director of nursing at Pacific College of Health Sciences and the current president of the American Cannabis Nurses Association. Now, Carey's been a nurse since 1994. She's got experience in medical, surgical, pediatrics, psychiatric, home health, hospice care, and parish nursing. She's written many publications on diverse topics ranging from integrating holistic modalities into nursing curriculum to the oncology nurse's role in working with medicinal cannabis patients. She's the editor of the forthcoming textbook for nurses entitled Cannabis, a Handbook for Nurses. She's dedicated to educating nurses and patients around the endocannabinoid system, homeostasis, and the safe and effective use of cannabis to support healing. Carey is a rock star nurse, and she's been in nursing for a long time as a leader. And now she's a leader in the cannabis space. And we'll get to talk about all sorts of things around cannabis nursing and how cannabis nursing is becoming mainstream in healthcare and how this whole movement is really making change. You're going to like this episode. So sit back, relax, and enjoy. All right, folks, we're live. Please welcome today's guest, Dr. Carey Clark, current president of the American Cannabis Nurses Association, amongst other things. Welcome, Carey.
Hi, Mark. Thanks so much for having me.
I'm so glad that we have this opportunity to chat today. And there's so much to talk about, isn't there?
There really is. It's exciting times in the world of cannabis care. So
it is, and I think in healthcare in general, I think there's a we'll talk about it here. I think there's a real feeling of looking for alternatives to what mainstream has been able to offer us, which has been a conversation for a long time, but I think it's really coming to a head now. So welcome to the Nurse Mark Podcast.
Thank you.
So let's talk about it. Let's start off with, how does a seemingly mainstream rock star nurse leader like you end up in this, what is kind of perceived by a lot of people to be kind of a shady area of cannabis nursing?
Right. Well, I really do hope that my involvement has, helped to change some of that perception. So,
I agree.
So I always like to start with, my husband's a rock and roll musician. So
love it.
So I was not at any point from college on sort of cannabis naive. And I lived in California for most of my life before I moved to Maine 9 years ago. And the last place we lived in California was Western Sonoma County. And so there's a lot of cannabis grown, particularly outdoors in Sonoma County. I think it's like their largest crop that they grow. So, and at that time, medical cannabis patients could grow 25 plants per person.
Wow.
So, yeah. So if you were, if you had a house with like 3 cannabis patients in it, you could have 75 plants growing outdoors. So come October, our whole neighborhood, because everyone around us was growing except for us, the terpenes would just be like, through the air and into your system, and almost to the point of like, it was almost too much sometimes.
Yeah. And then you know what? That's one of the things that people who are opposed to it use all the time. They're like, hey, you know what? The smell of these terpenes is ruining the value of my home. Like, it's a thing.
I mean, it really actually was sort of an issue. Like if you don't want to smoke, there's no choice. And we all know that everybody reacts to terpenes differently. So it is sort of an interesting conundrum, right? Because we want people to be able to grow, and growing outdoors is great if you're in that, sort of climate where you can. But then we also don't want to infringe on others. So that's an interesting challenge we have ahead of us. So anyway, I left California to move to Maine to start a holistic RN to BSN program at University of Maine at Augusta. That was in 2010. And I was looking around, I was like, where's all the cannabis in this state? Like, I wasn't seeing it. I wasn't smelling it. Obviously, there's not as much outdoor grow here as there is in California. But it's just a completely different sort of cannabis culture in Maine. Meanwhile, at that time, Maine had the second highest per capita cannabis use in the United States, right behind California. So there were plenty of people that were growing, using cannabis medicinally and otherwise. You just didn't see it the way you do in California, where it's fairly right. Meanwhile, so
Welcome to New England.
Yes, different culture.
Culture.
Yes, I got our RN BSN program up and running. I am a holistic nurse. I am certified as an advanced holistic nurse. And I had a student faculty chapter on campus of the American Holistic Nurses Association. And those students were very involved, very active. And they said, we want to bring this doctor to come and talk about caring and compassion and holism. And I was like, cool, bring him. And that day, it was a very snowy day. I'm surprised we didn't have a snow day. And my younger daughter, I think she didn't have school or something, but she came with me up to campus, and I was a little bit late, so I didn't hear this person's introduction, but this amazing doctor was up there talking about caring and compassion, and he had brought his little daughter as well. They were around the same age. And then my students had provided lunch. It was a packed, our classroom was completely full. I'm like, this doctor is amazing. Like, he may not know nursing theory, but he knows about caring and compassion and healing. And he's sharing so much with students. And afterward, I was talking to him, and he was like, well, my office is just down the street. And I provide medical cannabis recommendations for patients. And I was like, well, come back and talk about medical cannabis. Like, we need to know about this. And I don't really care what the university thinks. Like, we need to have this talk. So he came back and talked for about an hour, and he spent a good, probably half hour just on the endocannabinoid system. And this was my first real introduction to the endocannabinoid system. And he presented at a fairly high level. In fact, we also had one of our biology professors was there too, and she was taking notes like crazy. Yeah. So I don't know if she ever included
somebody in biology would be getting an introduction to the endocannabinoid system would be like mind blowing. It's like, yeah, I had no idea.
Right. I think this was around 2013 or so. And I walked out of that and I went, oh my God. Like, I'd always, in California, I'm like, it works. I never really thought about how it works. I knew for sure, it helped with things like nausea and, pain and those kind of things, but I wasn't really thinking about what is the physiology. And once I got the physiology and really understood how the endocannabinoid system supports our homeostasis, that whole idea of cannabis being some kind of snake oil it dissipated for me, right? Because people wonder, how can it be that it helps with glaucoma and chronic pain and fibromyalgia and stop seizures and
when I talk about that, I do a lot of speaking events, a lot of educational events. And that's one of the points that I drive home is, as a nurse or as any healthcare professional, we're trained in evidence-based practice, right? We're trained to be skeptical of things right from the start and say, well, oh my gosh. So that was the first thing when I got introduced to cannabis in how it worked. I was like, how could it be so useful in all of these different things? It just can't be. It can't be.
Right.
But then you get past that and you understand this amazing endocannabinoid system and you say, oh my gosh, now it all clicks. It makes sense why it works so well.
It really does. So then this doctor came back again. I had developed a class at UMA called Thanatology, End of Life Care for Nurses. And I brought him back to talk about cannabis use at end of life. And he said, well, you do know there's this organization called the American Cannabis Nurses Association. I was like, what? Get out of here.
What?
So I immediately went home and joined the organization and got involved. And I went to my first medical cannabis type conference was Patients Out of Time. And I helped to develop the beginning works of our education and research committee at ACNA. And then I thought, well, we're looking for, Eileen was finishing up her presidency, and there had been a vacancy on the board. So they brought me onto the board. And I thought, oh, well, maybe I should run for president. And she was really supportive of that. And I did it, and I won. And
here you are.
And here I am. I'm actually at the end of my presidency. It's been an amazing 2 years. We've had so much growth. I think when I started, there were 600 or 700 nurses, and now we're up to 1,300.
Oh, it's gaining momentum.
It really has. And and I was so pleased to meet you at our inaugural conference.
And it was such an amazing event. It was absolutely more than what I expected.
And we've been hearing a lot of that. So there's a lot of work that goes on to putting together a conference.
I know.
And it was one of my big goals as president to have sort of this idea. I wanted to have a conference, but more than a conference for me. And I think we had some amazing speakers. We had, and we'll have some video forthcoming of that. But, and we'll probably also have some CE offerings related to if people weren't able to get to the conference. But I think my bigger idea around that was just a gathering of like-minded nurses and being able to connect and being able to feel like I'm not alone. Like, I think, as you said earlier, like we can feel very fringy, like we're out here on the fringes of healthcare and medical care, and it can get lonely and it can get difficult, and our jobs can feel like a mistake.
Yeah, especially in healthcare, because you're up against 80 years of a particular conversation within healthcare about this drug and other, other ways of being, right? So it's just pharmaceuticals and that's all there is. And so it can feel kind of lonely being out on the edge because when you have a conversation with people, it's always from a negative context.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm hopeful that people were, and I think they did. There was just so much, it was so great to see people so joyful to be together and connecting. And
it was amazing.
It was really cool. And then, and also all the great information that was shared as well. So,
oh yeah. I always get something out of every learning or event that I go to. And I've been to a ton of them. I've attended so many different medical cannabis conferences around the world, actually. And, there's always something that I get out of it. And yours was, stimulating your endocannabinoid system by taking a cold shower. And I'm like, oh my gosh, okay. So I've done the cold dip and then the hot sauna type thing. And I never really understood that was stimulating my endocannabinoid system. So that was a learning point for me.
Right. So that kind of loops us back around. Who was this doctor? So that doctor that came to UMA and actually had an office right down, and still has an office right near there in Manchester, Maine, is Dr. Dustin Sulak. So he is like he was, I think, the original rock star of cannabis medicine, and he actually also spoke at our conference. So he has some responsibility in my leadership. So I am really looking forward to continuing on. So I will be past president at ACNA for a year. That means I sit on executive committee and I run nominations committee. And next year will be important because we'll be looking for our president-elect. Yes. And so, that's usually someone who's done some service already within the ACNA community and really has sort of the leadership ability to move both the organization forward and really connect with the larger profession as well. Another thing that we did was we were invited to join the Nursing Organization Alliance. So that is a group of, I don't know, 50 or 100, I don't know, but a lot of other nursing organizations. So think of like your National School Nurses Association,
And there are a lot.
Society, all of those. And when we go to those meetings, so one thing they have is a leadership academy that has been really great for us to learn as leaders running a nonprofit nursing organization. But one of the things that we find when we attend those events is that everybody wants to talk to us because cannabis crosses all those lines, right? The school nurses
It does.
They want to talk about their policy, and the pain management nurses want to talk about how cannabis, works to manage pain and how they can start adding it into their policies and how they can support patients. So that was one of the other things that I think was really key for us growing as an organization. And for myself,
it legitimizes the organization to an extent, don't you think?
Absolutely.
If you're a participant at the table with all of these other, well-known organizations, you're not fringe anymore. You're part of the conversation of healthcare.
Yeah, I think it really has, and I think a lot of people don't like, maybe even our members don't even know that, hey, we're a member of NOAA. Like, we are recognized by all these other nursing organizations.
Right.
Another thing that we have is our scope and standards of cannabis practice. So I developed the first version, and then last year we really refined the APRN scope to add in there. And we've brought that forward to ANCC, who are they're the American Nurses Credentialing Corporation. And they've given us some feedback. So that's a work in progress process, however you want to say it. So it can take, years to really get it to that level of where it needs to be for them to really recognize it as sort of like, yes, this truly is a specialty. So that's one of the challenges of really defining this as a specialty. And that's one of the things that I think is so important. And Mark, why I did my talk on upregulating the endocannabinoid system at conference is because as cannabis care nurses, we're not just about cannabis. And I think it's really important for people to understand that we actually want our patients to probably use the least amount of cannabis that they can, that helps to palliate so that they don't have adverse effects. But that for most people, that's just not going to be enough, that they're going to have to change their lifestyle.
Yes.
So
I harp on that all the time. I said, and that's, so that's what's out there in the marketplace now with, the rec and the CBD are these claims that, it's going to solve all your problems. You're going to take it and it's going to be this placebo. It's going to be this thing that's going to take care of everything in your life, which is just not true. But it has a huge part in creating this opportunity to address all the other facets. Like, as I mentioned earlier, before we started to do the recording, I'm finishing up my book, and my book is about all of the different ways in which you create this life you love. Exercise, nutrition, mindfulness, and cannabis included within that, right? In the right amount. And to your point, it's not this sort of the stigma of the get high culture, which I have no problem. Whatever anybody wants to do, I'm fine with. It's your life. You do what you want with it. But it's more about that microdosing and getting specific about relieving some of the issues that you may have. Like for me, I'm 57 years old. I work out hard. I feel pain all the time. Like it's just part of what my existence is. So a little bit of pain relief, without adverse effects to my liver from, NSAIDs or anything like that, a little bit of pain relief goes a long way for me. Right? It allows me to continue to do these things that keep me healthy and maintain the lifestyle I want.
Right.
So you're right. So that talk that you gave about the endocannabinoid system and upregulating wasn't just about cannabis. It was all inclusive, which was awesome, by the way.
Oh, thank you. So I love talking about that cold shower thing you mentioned earlier. That was new to me. I actually heard Dr. Sulak talk about it a couple weeks before conference, and then also looked at the data around it. And apparently, cold showers help to increase the CB1 receptor density. So since I found out about that, guess what I've been doing?
Okay, I'm going to give
No,
you. I'm going to give you an experience share. I've been doing it too, and oh, when that cold water first starts on, it takes your breath away, and it does take like a minute or two before you're like, okay,
right,
all right,
right.
not
So what
bad,
I'm doing
not
is
bad.
I'll take the hot shower. Like I
Mm-hmm.
still get the hot shower, and I have my heater on in the bathroom, and then I'll turn it to cold, and I'll check my watch, and I agree that first minute can be really intense. I have started. It's also an opportunity. If it's really intense, is to be in that time to really focus on your meditative experience with it.
Mm.
So I go. So I've been meditating for many years now. So I'll go into my mantra. What I've lately been doing too is kind of dancing around a little bit because that movement helps with the cold toleration, and then like kind of singing my mantra a little bit. And and Dustin said he does that too. So I thought, well, I'll try that.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
it really does help. It makes the time go by. And one thing I try, then kind of that last minute, if I'm rinsing conditioner out of my hair, I just keep my head full on under that cold water.
Yeah, see, I don't have that opportunity. I have no conditioning opportunity, Carey. So,
Don't do the full on cold on your head.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
And
for folks who are listening, we're talking about the fact that introducing a moment in your shower time of a cold shower. Now, how long did you say? Like 4 minutes or so?
yeah, I'm trying to get 3 to 5 minutes.
3 to 5? Yeah.
You can, and people can approach this different ways. You could start with 30 seconds and then go back to a hot shower. You can build up to a minute. I tend to be one who strives and pushes myself. So,
Go figure. Yeah. How'd you end up being president of the association, right? Yeah.
So I did right away start with the 3 to 5 minutes. And, and the other thing too is like some of these things that we do are not always fun. So we can try and find ways to make them fun, but like eating a healthy diet is not always
It's
fun.
not fun.
I work out. Like it's not always
Not
fun.
always fun. No,
Right?
you know what? I've even gotten to the point, Carey, where I've done CrossFit for 7 years because I love it. It's an hour and it's very formatted. I've even get to the point where I don't look ahead of time to see what the workout is because I don't want to dread the workout all the way till I get there, right?
Right.
I just want to show up and do it and be in the moment of doing that thing. And sometimes it's just not fun.
Right. So I mean, there is a way to show that you should enjoy your workout. That like the forced working out is not going to help upregulate your endocannabinoid system. But I think we do need to just really recognize that one, if you're not having fun, find something else to do that you enjoy more, so you keep doing it. Two, recognize that these things we do for our health can be challenging. They may not always be fun. For me, what keeps me motivated is the science. So there's a couple of good resources so when we meditate, it helps to reduce our stress levels, which then makes the endocannabinoid system, it's easier to bring us back into homeostasis. So when we have stress, our cortisol levels will go up. We'll still have a stress reaction, but we will recover much more quickly. So that cortisol won't be circulating as long. Once I read about the science of meditation, I went, oh man.
Yeah, I've attended a lot of science. I've attended a lot of courses around science behind meditation and yoga specifically. And I'm the same. Once I get the science behind it, and there is a lot of, since the advent of functional MRI, there are a lot more rigorous studies that have been done around meditation that conclusively prove the benefits of it, right?
There's a great book that I have my students read called Relaxation Revolution. It's by Herbert Benson, and then the other author is Proctor. I don't know his first name, but
Benson, very famous in the Boston area.
Yes, because he has the Benson Henry Institute. Henry Benson is so BHI. So they have done a lot of research. They did a study where they took novice meditators and then experienced meditators and looked at their sort of genetic profile. And they noticed that the experienced meditators had a different sort of profile. They had different antioxidative genes that were activated that the novice non-meditators didn't have.
Mm-hmm.
After practicing meditation regularly, and I think it was about 8 weeks, and it was 20 minutes twice a day, which is a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Most data shows like 10 minutes, once or twice a day is enough to start changing your brain and your genetic profile. But anyway,
Mm-hmm.
and then they redrew the labs, and those new meditators had like changed their genetic markers, like 800 of their genetic markers in 8 weeks.
Absolutely.
That to me is like, whoa, that is mind blowing.
It is mind blowing.
Yes.
But it's data, it's science, it's conclusive, right? This is what happens.
Right.
We've had anecdotal evidence forever and ever and ever, but
right.
now we're getting down to the science behind it. And I'm a huge, huge fan of meditation. And for me, that's like the base. Okay. Everything else builds on that. The exercise, the nutrition, all of the cannabis, everything.
Right.
All the other healthy practices build off of that base.
Right. Yeah. For me, a long time, for most of my life, exercise was really the base of that. And exercise.
And for me too. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And then once I was like, well, I'm good with the exercise. It is one of your largest health risk factors. It's something you can control, where your genetics you can't. But once I read about how, the meditation really influences how your genes are expressed, I went, well, there's something else on my list. But it's totally, for me, what works is starting the day off, finding other ways to combine it in. So sometimes, I'm a jogger, runner, whatever you want to call it. So sometimes, if I felt like I haven't done a good meditation first thing in the morning, I will, the last half mile of my workout, I will turn off the electronics and do like a walking meditation to start getting in, So finding ways to make it part of your routine is really important.
Mm-hmm. So imagine that. We have no control over what we receive for genetic coding, right? Where it's handed down to us. This is what we're born with. But imagine that we have this capacity and opportunity to actually influence what's turned on and what's not turned on. And so it's exciting to think that you can have that sort of positive effect on what goes on.
Right. And I think so many people out there, I think back to my nursing school days. I remember this patient so well. She was, I went to nursing school in Los Angeles County. Anyway, so this patient was an elderly Hispanic, I guess now we would say Latinx patient, but back then we didn't. But anyway, and she'd had a kind of minor heart attack, and she was in the definitive observation unit where I did my precepting. And she was really like, well, I was like, well, what are you willing to do? What's going to change? What do you want to do here to, and I don't think she was that old. She was probably in her 50s or 60s. So what do you want? And I was, 20 something. I was like, what do you want to do to kind of change your life and better manage this? She's like, oh, it's up to God. And I understand that's a cultural and religious belief, but also, we need to educate people that they have some control over their health, that they really can. And, doing small things, adding in the meditation, getting outside in the outdoors. There's great data to show, exercise, of course, we know is positive for our health and our endocannabinoids. Just being out in nature is so important for us. Right now we're headed into that seasonal affective disorder time of year.
Oh yeah.
And we know that getting out in the sunlight is really important. So people need to be coached, and it's kind of beyond that education. So that's part of the cannabis care nurse's role as well. So it's beyond the education. It's beyond just focusing about cannabis care, but it's really walking the walk with them, sharing their journey, creating spaces of care and healing so that they can really make these lifestyle changes, so they can potentiate the ECS and have good quality of life. And like you, I'm in my 50s. I'm 52. I have pain. I had a severe car accident about 10 years ago. And then other injuries throughout my life. And then, if you work out, and I like to ski and all these other things, and you're going to have pain. So I
Yeah.
think this idea too of a pain-free life is something.
It's not, that's never going to happen, especially the older you get. I mean, it's just not going to be the case.
Right.
It's the truth. So,
Right.
you have opportunities to kind of introduce these more healthy lifestyle choices. And it's a difficult prospect because we are programmable machines, and we have programming that we've had for a very, very long time. And to change that is a difficult prospect, but it can be done, right? With the coaching and the cueing and and that consistent effort to kind of supplant a new habit on top. I'll tell you, you said it earlier, sometimes it doesn't feel good. Well, let me tell you, the alternative doesn't feel very good. I have 2 younger brothers, and both of them are type 2 with diabetics. So diabetes runs in the family, right?
Yeah.
Neither one really exercised. Neither one chose a healthy diet. Like they set themselves up to get to this point to where they, are now having to deal with it and taking medications and looking at insulin. And someone has to take insulin. So that's not fun. Like drawing your blood and checking your glucose level on a daily basis several times a day is not fun.
Right.
I've seen it in family members. So although these other things aren't fun, they're a hell of a lot more fun than doing that.
Right. And I think as nurses, we have this, we've seen it, like we get it.
Oh.
Like we've seen that diabetes is the number one reason why limbs are amputated outside of trauma.
Holy, my great grandfather lost both legs and an eye before he passed away. Right. So diabetes is a reality in my family.
It really is. Yeah. Right. That's really motivating. And heart disease is a reality in my family. And so that really motivates me. And as nurses too, besides the coaching, we can really use motivational interviewing. Like, what motivates you? For me, the family history motivates me. But also, I want to be a role. My daughters are 11 and 14. And, wanting to be a role model for them. But also wanting to be around. Like I want to see them succeed.
They have a lot that's going to happen in their lives, right? You want to be there for that.
Yes.
Totally.
Right. And, I was late in life. Some people called me a geriatric mother.
Now, I'm on the other end of the spectrum. I had my first kid at 21. So I did the exact opposite. I didn't graduate college till 2014. Imagine that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations.
Yeah. Oh, I did. I built a whole business and ran it for 30 years and did that whole corporate scene, and then, graduated college. So I'm completely flipped from you. So you chose the other way around, which, by the way, is, I think, the way most people are doing it these days.
Yeah. I think for us, I just, once I really got into, so I actually have a degree in foods and nutrition. And I worked with moderately to morbidly obese patients, basically what we would now call coaching, but teaching, educating, supporting / coaching. And I did that for several years before I became a nurse. And it really did help to give me that preventative slant I'm able to be compassionate and caring with patients, but I can also be that, the coach and when we coach, we're still compassionate, we're still caring, but sometimes too, we may need to really reflect back for patients what what you're hearing from them, and use tools like motivational interviewing with them as well. But that kind of background getting me into nursing, and then I really got into the academic side of things and wanted to each new degree I got, I thought, well, I want to get the next degree, and I'm not sure I want to do it with kids.
Same here. I'm still in some school now.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'd seen, my best friend in my associate degree nursing program. She had 2 young kids. I think they were like 1 and 3 or something when we started. And she got a divorce halfway through, and she was working full time. And she did well. She got A's and B's, and I always thought, man, if she wouldn't have had all these other things going on, she really would have been like the straight A student. but
Mhm.
she did it, and she's actually in her doctoral program now. So we all
Awesome.
kind of take our own paths on
Don't we?
this.
Mhm.
But again, that is really what motivates me. And I guess talking in circles here, but back to this idea of like
No. We got it. Like I
yeah,
said, the organic conversation. Now you said
yeah,
something, or you said something just a minute ago that I just want to touch on. And you said, you got into this mode of preventative care, right?
right.
So I say this all the time to people. I say, what's the best way to treat a disease? And they come up with all these different ways. And I say, no, prevent it in the first place.
Right.
Like prevent getting to the point. Like
Right.
once you're morbidly obese and you've had experience, it's so difficult to get back from that, right? So trying to stop from getting there is hugely important
Right.
for people.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. When I worked with the morbidly obese patients, we did the use health risk factor profiles.
Mm-hmm.
So we would look at their blood pressure, blood sugar, cholesterol, triglycerides, all of that. And then we would look at what their baseline was when they started this program. So how much were they exercising? Were they wearing sunscreen? Were they eating fruits and vegetables? Were they, sleeping enough, wearing a seatbelt, all these sorts of things. And what we found was that even when they lost weight,
Mm-hmm.
um, they might gain some weight back, right?
Right.
That's kind of the norm. But what we found was that even if they gained the weight back, or half the weight back or whatever, they were healthier because
Mm-hmm.
they had changed their lifestyle. So we could rerun their health risk factor profile and say, okay, you've gained back half of the 50 pounds that you lost. But look, because you're exercising and eating fruits and vegetables, and wearing sunscreen and your seatbelt and and getting more sleep and managing your stress, you're keeping your blood pressure down, your cholesterol looks better, you are healthier. So
Mm-hmm.
also getting people out of this idea of like it's all about the weight. There is
Right.
some good stuff going on right now with intermittent fasting.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, we do know that helps. So I think it's 2 AG increases when you're intermittent fasting, and then it kind of drops off once you eat again. So
2-AG, for those folks who are listening who don't know what that is, it's a cannabinoid. It's an endocannabinoid that's produced by your body. So yeah, which
right.
interacts with your endocannabinoid system. Yeah, so it's amazing, right?
Yes.
All of
Yeah.
these different factors come into play in this amazing sort of system that works with homeostasis.
Right.
Yeah,
It is.
incredible.
It's right. So we've talked about intermittent fasting,
Mm-hmm.
exercise, meditation, the cold
Mm-hmm.
showers,
Mm-hmm.
like getting enough sleep, um, finding ways to enjoy your life. If you're not happy, like find out what's going to make you happy. Um,
Yes.
yeah, I think there's not a lot of data around this, but um, talking, uh, therapy. If you've had trauma, figuring out ways to clear that trauma. There's something called EMDR.
Very familiar with that.
Yeah, so
Effective.
EMDR is
It's utilized for PTSD in a lot of cases, right?
right. Yeah,
Yeah.
and also nurses also have uh, 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 the population of nurses. I did some study on this with nursing students,
Mm-hmm.
but we have a higher rate of adverse childhood experiences and higher childhood trauma than the general population. So
Mm.
so that affects how our brains
That
develop, how
that's interesting. Do you think
yeah.
that has any sort of, is there any causation of why we get into this empathetic, caring line of work?
Yeah. Yeah, so I think
Neat.
there's definitely a correlation.
Yeah.
Uh, and I have written up my data that I found, and now it's in peer review process, and I need to do some reworking of it. So
Mm-hmm.
that should be coming out in the next year or so. But um, really, what we're looking at is that there's a theory of the nurse's wounded healer.
Mm.
So we are drawn to be in this realm of healing because we likely need to be healing ourselves. And that's
Yeah.
another thing that's in our scope and standards of cannabis nursing practice is that we need to be on our own healing journey. Doesn't mean we necessarily have to be using cannabis ourselves, but
Mm-hmm.
we definitely need to be on a healing path, um, and doing some of these things that we're talking about so that we can support patients doing them. It just becomes very kind of, hypocritical if we're saying you need to exercise or you need to, change your diet, and then we're not doing that, right?
You have to lead by example.
Yeah.
You have to. It's so much more powerful if you can say in your experience, right?
Yep.
This is how it's worked for me, and this is how I've created this amazing life. Like, I love my life. I absolutely do. But I had to work. I've done 30 years of work, whether it's therapy or, all of these different things. If there is, you could name any self-help book or self-help program. I have done it. Like, seriously, like you, I don't do things half-assed. I jump in 100%.
Right.
And so I've done all of these things, and I've worked on all of these healing modalities because I experienced childhood trauma. I had things that had programmed me to react to life in a certain way, and it wasn't necessarily in a healthy way. And so I had to do all of these things. So it's much more powerful to say, listen, I've been where you're at. I know how you feel, and these are the things that I did that helped. And so all of the things that we've talked about today go into that.
Right.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And here we are. So what do you think about the ECS, the endocannabinoid system, this amazing system that we have, the largest neurotransmitting system in our body? For me, swear to God, I believe that it'll be heralded as one of the greatest discoveries in medicine, in health, of this century, for sure.
Oh yeah, and
of the last century.
I was going to say, I think it was discovered
last
in
century.
90s. Yeah. So, but we're still trying to get it. Like, it's just so bizarre to me that it's still not in our textbooks.
It's not.
It's not. And so, I'm actually the editor of what we're hoping will be the first textbook for nurses on cannabis care. And one of the issues with that is, though, that when we bring it out in the textbook like that, it's like, then it needs to really be used across the whole curriculum. Like, our curriculum, when you're talking about a specific disease process, it should include the endocannabinoid system, right? When you're talking about pharmacology.
Didn't the NIH make that statement? The National Institute of Health in the United States made this statement, I'm not sure, not too long ago, that said the endocannabinoid system is indicated in every disease state.
Yeah.
That came from the NIH.
Yeah, right. So we're recognizing it, but it's taken a while to get it translational, get it into our textbooks, get it into our curriculum. Part of the problem is that all these people that are out there teaching now don't have that baseline knowledge. So it's not just like the nurse educators and the doctor, MD, or DO educators. It's also like the people that teach biology, the people that teach anatomy and physiology and pathophysiology. Those educators, professors, et cetera, also need to be educated on it, and it needs to make it into our textbooks. So, so we're kind of just going through that period of getting the knowledge out there. And, some of that is impacted by stigma as we end the sort of what I call the era of prohibition and enter into what I'm calling an era of regulation of cannabis.
True.
It's just a very interesting and exciting time. So
it is exciting, and the possibilities are amazing. The possibilities that we have, and we don't know which direction it's going to go in a lot of different ways. So where do you see cannabis nursing a few years down the road?
So that of course is a great question. Years down the road, I hope to see it as a specialty where you can get a certification in it.
Similar to wound care, right?
Similar to wound care, similar to holistic nursing. I do think we are closely and greatly aligned with holistic nursing. AHN also loves us. And I've been also very involved with that organization as well. And a lot of those nurses same kind of thing. Once they hear about the endocannabinoid system and how holistic modalities help to upregulate it, from yoga to massage to acupuncture to osteopathy and all the,
all of it.
aromatherapy. We know the terpenes from the aromas.
All of it.
Right. So I foresee it as being a specialty, really focused on the coaching part, really focused on the creating healing space for patients. And hopefully, actually we would be able to do like they do in Israel, where they can sit with the patients while they're consuming cannabis and guide them through it, and be able to touch and handle the medicines in kind of that legal way. Yeah.
I was in Israel for a medical cannabis conference in September, and I had never been to Israel before, and I have to tell you, I just absolutely fell in love with the country and the people and just the attitude of really living life. And so for them, they're years ahead of us in regard to cannabis care. Years ahead. All of the major research, that's the epicenter of cannabis research for me in the world.
Yeah, they're doing amazing things there.
Amazing. Because the government supports them.
Right.
In allowing it, right?
Right.
Yeah.
I also, in a few years, I'd love to see the organization grow. At one of our last, at the Cannabis Care Conference, we had an informal kind of board meeting gathering. And then we had a formal board meeting a week or so later. But I said, one of the goals that I would like to see the organization grow to be at least, 5,000 or 10,000 nurses, right?
Easily.
Yeah.
I see that.
Yeah.
That's an easy number.
And then that we are really, that AHCNA is really the leaders in providing quality education, because we have the nurse leaders in our organization, but we also have those connections to reach out and really develop solid educational opportunities, and also partner with other organizations that are offering educational opportunities. So I am actually leaving University of Maine at Augusta. And I will be teaching at Pacific College of Health Sciences, formerly called Pacific College of Oriental Medicine. We developed a cannabis care certificate there. And I will actually be taking on their director of nursing position.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Now, does that mean a move from the great state of Maine, or are you going to still be located?
Not. I will be able to do this mostly from a distance. So they have campuses in
Isn't technology great?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
We have campuses in New York State, San Diego, and Chicago. And we are also, so if you're looking to get a holistic RN to BSN, they have, I'm planning on growing that program, and I'm planning on making it one of the biggest ones in the nation. You will think of Pacific College of Health Sciences, and you will think of holistic nursing. And we're getting ready to start a master's program that will include nurse education and nurse coaching. And on that nurse coaching, we hope to also really expand our cannabis care offerings too. So, I'm hopeful to really bring this all together. I think it is really that time now where people are recognizing the challenges with just strict allopathic approaches and traditional approaches to providing care. And people want the integrative approach, and they're not satisfied with all this polypharmacy.
Absolutely. And there are a lot of reasons for that I feel like the advent of the internet, all of the information is available. Dr. Google, people are more involved in understanding what's going on with them, right? Before it was just like you go to the doctor knows, that's it.
Yeah.
Like, I don't have to question it. Now it's like, and it's not great for the docs and the NPs, right? Because they get questioned all the time. It's like second guess. Kind of a pain in the ass. But on the other side is what you're talking about, this movement of, hey, I'm going to be involved in my care, which is amazing and an awesome opportunity for people to get healthy. And I think it's as it should be. It's a shift. It's a shift in healthcare.
And I think, right now we really kind of have this, people are saying it's not healthcare, it's sick care.
Yeah.
And the whole for-profit model. And I'm really hopeful that if we move toward sort of this, I'm not thrilled about calling it Medicare for all. I think we really need to focus on changing the whole model of healthcare, moving away from a for-profit system. There's amazing healthcare systems out there where people are having good health outcomes, but also getting people to shift their mind away from this idea that a pill or even cannabis is going to cure them.
Right.
And I feel like, this is getting, we've talked about it this whole hour or whatever, but we need to be the leaders in helping make that shift happen.
I've been committed to this for the last few years since I got into nursing. I recognize that nurses are the ones that are going to make this happen.
Yes.
I recognize that without any question, because we get it, right? We get that this shift needs to happen, and we are the largest group of healthcare providers. There's power in that. Just need to get everybody on board. And we talked about it earlier. We have to live that life. We have to model that life and move healthcare in that direction. So I'm super excited that we're going to be, you and I are going to make this happen.
Yes, you and I, or you and me, and all the ACNA nurses, and holistic nurses as well, and for ACNA nurses that loved Cannabis Care Conference 2019 and are looking for other conferences. There's Patients Out of Time. There's a lot of other conferences. ACNA will have conferences in the future, but also check out AHN-BC, American Holistic Nurses Association. Their conference is a lot like ours was, that it really is about, truck just went by, it's really about caring and connecting and creating this space for healing and truly nursing.
It's about truly nursing, yeah.
Yeah, and their thought is like all nursing is holistic nursing. So if what you're doing is not holistic, then it's not nursing.
Okay.
So we're coming into the year of the nurse 2020, which is very exciting because there's so many opportunities for ACNA, AHNA. I also belong to a group called Nurse Manifest Group that's more of an advocacy group, and that's part of our work as cannabis care nurses, that we're really advocating.
We are advocates,
helping to change laws and regulations and so forth. So exciting
to be here at this moment in healthcare and have the opportunity to do this.
It really is.
Yes.
So,
any last thoughts?
Yeah, taking good care of ourselves so that we can be, at our best. We can have an upregulated endocannabinoid system, and we can go out and end that stigma and support each other and start to create these environments where healing can really happen. So that's my parting thought.
Love it. All right, so we have reached the part of the Nurse Mark podcast where I get to ask you a really deep question.
Okay.
And so I have a few that I use, but you know what? I've been using the same one now that I really love the responses that I've got. And so I'm going to throw it on you, just like I did with some of the last few guests that I've had on. And the question is this: what's the greatest lesson that one of your parents or someone who is super important in your life have given you? What is the greatest lesson that you have been handed?
Wow. So the greatest one. I think one of the greatest ones is to really to kind of pass on what you've learned, reach out and mentor others, kind of reach out beyond yourself. And I've been really fortunate to have some great mentors. And I also try and reach out and mentor others, and because I know what it's like to be out there and again, kind of feeling like you're on your own. And if we're all able to reach out to someone around us and mentor them along the path, I think that's one of the greatest lessons to learn. And you get so much back yourself.
Oh my gosh. Absolutely. Right? I've done it. I have had the same experience. I've had great mentors, and I've had great experiences mentoring other people. And you're right. You get back.
Right.
As much or more than you give out. It's an amazing relationship between two people.
Right.
Yeah.
And I guess the other big thing that I have learned too is that that it's so this will sound a little like woo-y, but it's all about love, right?
Yeah.
So it's all about, loving yourself, loving those you're with. And in nursing, we get to do that. We create these caring, healing spaces. We get to come to be with people from really a space in our heart of
Mm-hmm.
tenderness and caring and recognizing their humanity and this like amazing mystery of life and death. I was a hospice
Mm-hmm.
nurse for many years, so I have a great
I was in the
kind of
board of a hospice organization for a
yeah,
while and did my final clinical there. And so
yeah.
hospice and this whole idea about really being present that death is natural.
It's where we're all headed too.
We're
It's
all
like
going there.
great
Nobody gets out
commonality.
alive, baby.
Yes. So how can we spend our life, you know, caring for ourselves on our healing journey, caring for others, mentoring
Mm-hmm.
others, expressing our love, uh, creating these spaces of caring and healing and love, sort of wherever we go. And if we can do that, when it comes down to the end, it's you're going to look back and say, "Wow, what a great life I had!" Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Love it. Love it. Well, we've reached the end of the podcast. And
Yes.
I want to just thank you for spending this time with me and all of the listeners and, sharing a bit of your life and, the amazing things that you're up to. Really. Thank you for being here, Carey. And, much love. Much love to you.
Yes, you as well. And namaste.
Namaste.
For those that don't know, it means the light in me recognizes and honors the light in you. And thank you to everyone for listening. It's been such an honor and a pleasure to be of service to all of the cannabis care nurses out there. And I'm just really thrilled to have been on your podcast. And of course, people can reach out to me. I'm easy to find.
Yeah. How do they find you? Good point. Thank you for bringing that up.
Yes. So Carey at cannabisnurse.org is my email for another year. Also, if you just look up Carey Clark Cannabis, you'll find me.
Absolutely. And on the show notes, we'll have all of her contact info, folks. So you will be able to track this girl down. And you know what? I encourage you to do that because she's amazing. And thanks, Carey, for being on the Nurse Mark podcast. That is a wrap, folks. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next time. Well, that's it for this episode, folks. Great episode with Carey Clark. I'm so happy that I had an opportunity to chat with her. And I hope that you get a real sense of what's going on in cannabis healthcare. Really, what's happening in the nursing environment related to cannabis and how powerful and effective this medicine really is. And how there are real, true nurse leaders out there who are leading the way in this genre of healthcare. Well, until next time, this is Nurse Mark saying health, happiness, cannabis.